What would you do if a burglar broke into your home? What are your chances of searching your house and apprehending the intruder? Hello, I'm Lenny McGill, and for the record, it's not a good idea to go searching your house, unless, of course, a loved one is in danger. Once you know an intruder is in your house, your first call of action should be to call 911, then get your firearm. If you were successful in reaching 911, keep the line open with them. And you may let the intruder know how you stand.
I've called the police! I have a gun! Get out of my house!
If you must go out of your room, there are certain tactics and techniques that have proven to increase your chances of success and survival. And that's what this program is all about. Providing the information you need to make smart decisions when it comes to house clearing and cornering techniques. The information you're about to see is being presented by two of the most skilled and respected names in the self-defense shooting industry. Ken Hackathorn and Bill Wilson. Hackathorn is one of the world's foremost authorities on the subject of the tactical deployment of small arms. He has trained U.S. military special forces, FBI and police, and anti-terrorist units. He's been involved in the tactical application of firearms for more than 25 years. Bill Wilson is the president and founder of Wilson Combat, manufacturers of high-quality custom gun parts, accessories, and complete custom guns for self-defense and competition. While his background started as a competition shooter in 1974, Wilson has devoted the past 6 years to the development and application of self-defense handguns. In this program, you'll learn how to enter and search a room while maintaining cover, how and why to stay out of the fatal funnel, how to look for and avoid telegraphing target indicators, plus the importance of maintaining your distance from walls and corners, and how to use your third eye to your advantage. Then Wilson and Hackathorn demonstrate cover versus concealment as they shoot .22 caliber, 38, 9mm, and 45 caliber ammunition through ordinary interior walls. That's all coming up, plus lots more on house clearing and cornering techniques.
What we're going to talk about now is the approach to room clearing or searching, for example, your house. And we must clarify a number of things. First off, understand if you're going to search your home, you've returned home, you think somebody's been in your house, and you decide, well, I'm going to go in and actually search it and make sure my house is secure. For one individual, a single individual to go and search and clear a house is extremely hazardous. Some people you could even characterize as being almost suicidal. If there are armed intruders in your house and you think you're going to approach it and search it by yourself, it's an incredibly hazardous task. It's something that typically you wouldn't want to do on your own if you had any choice at all. If you're arriving home and you found that your home or your place of business has been violated, somebody's broken into it, there's a door ajar, a window's been broken open, one of the wisest moves you could make would be obviously go to your neighbors, or if you have a cellular phone, do it yourself from your car, is call the police. Call the famous 911 and report a breaking entering at the residence you're at or your place of business. Let the police officers respond, and they're professionals, they're trained to do this, let them. And they will do it probably as a team. A number of officers involved will actually go in and search and clear the structure. So that's always your first option. If on the other hand, let's say the classic situation where you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear crash bang somewhere in your home. A number of responses. Some people will argue, well, clearly you shouldn't try to respond and search your house by yourself in the middle of the night. You should call the police. Not a bad idea, but you got to take some things into consideration. First off, let's say you're absolutely sure there's somebody crashing around your house, you've heard breaking glass. Is your bedroom or wherever you're at secure? In other words, can you stay in there safely and be well protected? If you have children or other guests in the house, how are you going to decide who it is, who's where? You may have to have a plan, for example, if you wake up in the middle of the night and your house has been invaded, that you go to your children's room, collect your children, and bring them into your bedroom so everybody's in one room where they're secure. If you call the police, remember one of the first things that's going to happen, most of even your petty criminals, if they've ever been incarcerated, even if they're juveniles, most of them have been incarcerated in a juvenile detention center, and they all learn lessons from the other inmates. One of the first things they all understand is when they walk into your home, most homes in America have a number of different phone extensions in the house, and if you walk into the bedroom, or if you're in the bedroom and they walk into your kitchen, they're going to take the phone off the hook. And when they take it off the hook, guess what? You're not going to be able to pick up your phone and call out. They've just rendered your phone fairly useless. A good argument for having a cellular phone in your bedroom. You pick up the phone, call the police. Remember, when you get on the line, it's very important to stay calm. Tell them you think somebody's broken into your home. Give them your address. Remember, repeat the address. Say it carefully and slowly so they understand where it's at. And you may have to tell the police officers actually how to get there. Because if you live in some communities, some urban areas, it's just giving them a street address is not good enough. You've got to tell them that your street is off of such and such a street, and you're at the north end or the south end or on the north side of the street. Maybe a description of the house. If your house is locked, and most people in America now lock their homes when they go to bed at night, and you're in your bedroom and you expect a police officer to get in the front door or the back door to search your house, how's he going to get in without kicking the door in? So maybe a smart move would be take a house key, keeping it in your bedroom, and take that house key or door key, if you will, and attach it to something so it's easy to find and easy to locate. If you open up your window to throw your house key out to the police officer at night, and he doesn't catch it or doesn't see it or lands in the bushes, you're defeated your purpose. So take something large attached to the key so it's easily identifiable and easy to see, so you can throw it out to the police officer so you in turn can open a door and come in and search your house. If a police officer is going to respond, stay in your bedroom, stay in a secure part of your house until they arrive. If you have a firearm, tell them, I'm in my bedroom, I have a gun, and I'm going to stay there until you announce and knock on the door. Let's take another scenario. Suppose you, and this is the typical one, you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear something. You're not sure what it is. You want to go check and see what it is. As we talked about in the low light shooting scenarios, you want to be able to have your weapon handy and a flashlight. So you think, I heard something in the house, I'm not sure what it is. You pick up your weapon, you pick up your flashlight, and you go search. There is a proper way to search, and there certainly are a lot of wrong ways. One advantage, remember, you know the layout of your structure probably better than any intruder does. The downside is the intruder has the advantage because he's, in essence, going to be the one that's going to hide and wait for you to come to him. So that's certainly hazardous. So the techniques we're going to show you here about room clearing and room searching, we want to impress upon you, no matter how good you are, they are incredibly dangerous and incredibly hazardous. But there are some fundamentals, and we're going to show them to you. We're not going to get really deeply involved in this. We're going to try to keep it as simple as we can. And we want to show you some things you should be conscious of, and particularly if you consider a possibility that you may have to search and clear your own home, maybe one of the things you want to do is do it beforehand. I tell everybody, you should rehearse it. Start from your bedroom or start from your front door and say, how would I go about searching and clearing my house to determine whether or not there's any intruders in it? And we'll show you some very basic, solid principles for you to utilize. People make gross errors in judgment when they try to search their house. Unfortunately, most people do what they see on TV and the movies, and one of which, of course, is they tend to do what we could call a Starsky and Hutch thing. They tend to want to jump through doorways, wave their gun around, hold their gun up in front of their face, and do a lot of moves and a lot of positions in the house that, quite honestly, are almost suicidal. So we'll show you how to break some of those nasty habits. We'll show you some correct ways to go about it. And if you think about it, we're talking about nothing but common sense. Remember, we discussed earlier in our mental conditioning lecture that under conditions of stress, the conscious mind cannot and will not work. I think it works with the subconscious mind. So if you think, when you think there's or feel there's an intruder in your house, and you get up to search or respond to it, and if you think you're going to use an analytical, conscious thought process under that kind of stress, you're seriously misleading yourself. You have to have done it and rehearsed it and done a little bit of subconscious programming so you know exactly how to approach it. Remember, caution. Nobody says you have to be in a hurry. You do this slowly and carefully. If anything, you want the intruder to be alarmed and be in such a state of mind that he is off guard and he's the one who wants to escape. Remember, most intruders in your home, most people involving any type of a felony activity want to escape. They don't want to get caught. So instead of rushing through the clearing or the search, take your time, let them be the ones who become unnerved and want to bolt and run or escape. And remember, once they flee your house, let them go. That's when you call the police and tell them you had an intruder and the person left in such and such a direction, and if possible, give them a description of the intruder. Once they fled your house or fled your business, technically your rights to pursue them as a citizen are incredibly limited, unless they've taken a loved one or taken somebody hostage or posed a real threat to somebody's life. Your grounds for pursuing them, particularly using lethal force, is extremely shaky. You're going to find yourself in very, very weak legal ground. Okay, we're going to stop here for a minute, and then we're going to reposition ourselves, and we're going to show you some of the different approaches to clearing and checking and searching a structure.
Clearing your house with a firearm is very dangerous and not recommended unless you have no other options. If, for example, you have children or guests and they are in danger, make sure that you know where they are before you go through your house with a firearm. And if you have a flashlight, take it with you. You need it to be able to identify your target, and a flashlight will help. We have a full separate program that's titled Night Master that deals extensively with the use of flashlights and handguns. It's a good reference for you to consider, and something that if you're going to be using a handgun and you have a flashlight, you definitely should watch. Understand, your first line of defense is to establish a good defensive position in your bedroom and call the police. If that doesn't work, you could yell out in an authoritative voice, "I have a firearm. I've called police. Leave my house now." Your verbal commands are extremely useful. First, because most criminals do not want to get caught. They don't want to be involved in a confrontation whatsoever. They just want to get away. Second, maybe that crash you heard is not a criminal after all. Possibly it's your teenager or one of their friends coming home late. So, using your voice to announce your position is really not a bad idea, especially if you have a strong defensive position. Finally, here in San Diego, when my office had been burglarized, the police responded. There were 2 cars, 4 officers, and they waited outside until the canine unit arrived. Then they sent the dog in to clear the office. So even the police consider building searches to be extremely hazardous. Please consider these options before you search your house with a gun. Let's move on. Here's Ken Hackathorn.
This is one of the first things we'll discuss is doorways, because almost anywhere you go, you're going to have to negotiate doorways. And doorways, as you all know, can be extremely hazardous. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And depending on, remember, being creatures of habit, we tend to want to do things the way we do them on a regular basis. And a typical habit, and let me give you an example. This is a typical habit most people have. If I want to know what's on the other side of that door, this is what most people do. They walk up to the door, they open it, and they stand in the doorway and they look. What do I see? This is our normal, everyday experience of seeing what's on the other side of the door. Now, in tactical training, we refer to the doorway as the fatal funnel, simply meaning that when you're in a doorway, this is a target frame. Anybody inside the structure, if they sense a threat is coming, they're going to be focused on the doorway because that's where they expect the trouble to come from the intruder or whoever poses a threat to them. So guess, if they're looking at the threat, guess where their weapon is likely to be pointed at, is the doorway. So anytime you're here, in this beautiful target frame, we call it the target or the fatal funnel, you're in an incredible danger area. So we tell people, don't linger or don't stand in the fatal funnel. Remember also, if you're entering a darkened room, typically you will be silhouetted when you're in the door. And even more so, you're going to be highlighted and an easy target. So the doorway-wise, remember, the typical technique that most people want to do is step into the doorway or step right into the threshold and look around, is a technique we're not particularly thrilled with because it puts you in a very compromised position. Now let's go step back out and talk about the doorway again. In America, most doors are built to housing standards. And for example, a great many of them, typically internal doors, will be built to open in, and a doorknob will be on the right, because typically most people are right-handed. Now, there are variations depending on the floor plan of the house. And remember, we always refer to doorways as being either center-fed doors, and a center-fed door is a door that's right in the middle of the room, so you have a wall portion on each side, or we have corner-fed doors, which are in the corner of the room. And if you look in most homes, most domestic dwellings, we utilize a lot of corner-fed doors because that allows the interior to have that much more wall space for placing furniture and stuff. So think about your own home. You'll probably find there are far more corner-fed doors that actually open in. The door opens in right to a wall. The door is placed in the corner of the room for maximum utilization of space in your house. And you'll find particularly bedrooms and a lot of internal rooms will in fact be corner-fed doors. You won't see that many, quote, center-fed, where the door opens in the middle, right in the middle of the room. Now, if you can see the hinges, you look at a door, if you can see hinges, that tells you the door is going to open out or open towards you. If you can't see hinges, typically that means the door is going to open away from you. Simple indicator, if you walk up the door and take a quick glance, I don't see any hinges, that tells me that door right there has to open in. Now, where I want to position myself, One of the things we're going to talk about, and you'll be hearing us in this segment quite a bit, is talking about pieing the room. And pieing means simply, if you can imagine, as you cut a piece of pie, you cut it into wedges. When you look inside a room or you're searching a room, instead of opening a door and jumping in like I did, or stepping right into the doorway and looking all around, which puts you in a very vulnerable position, we stay outside the door and we open the door and we actually search. We look into the room and look at little corners, little pieces of pie. And once I'm sure that corner is clear, that piece of pie is clear, then I'm going to lean out and look a little bit farther and look at another piece of the pie. And what we do is we continue that process of looking a little bit more, another piece of pie. The more we search the room, the more we clear, the more sure we are that sector is clear and allows us to move on. So remember, we're only going to look at a small portion of the room. And you may not have any choice. You come up to the doorway, particularly one like this, where the doorknob is on the left side of the door and opens in. For some reason, I may not be able to move to the other side of the door. I may have to open it from here. But remember, when I open it from this side and push it open, I don't really see all that much of the room from right here. In other words, the amount of pie I have from right here to the edge of the door is a fairly small piece of pie. As you can see, I don't have a whole lot. Now let me show you what happens when I close the door and I open it from the other side. If I'm standing on this side of the room and I open the door, watch what happens. If I reach over to open it, I push it open, and look how much bigger my piece of the pie is. I've got from almost this corner of the wall over almost to in line with the door. So I have a big piece of pie that I can look into from right here. I can see almost to the corner of the wall, and I can bring myself out and look clear around. And I've got one real large piece of pie. Typically, if you can open the door from this side, so you've got more of the room to see initially, and we call this our primary sector of fire, the bigger the sector you have to search initially, the quicker you're going to be sure that the room is clear. Once I've seen this part of the pie, what I simply do is I lean out and look for a little bit more. In other words, I'm increasing my piece of the pie. I can move out and look over here just a little bit farther, and I can continue to do my cutting the pie. Now, if this is a corner-fed door, when I push it all the way open, it's only going to come to the wall and stop. And that's basically going to be my limit of the room. And once I've pied this far, I've seen all I can see. If I've got a center-fed door, it means there's a wall on each side here. Actually, I've got to find out what's on the other side of the door. And that poses a greater problem. Particularly if the door will not swing all the way open like this facade. It's limited here. So it means now to cut the pie and search the rest of the room, I'm actually going to make entry. But what I want to make sure of is before I go in that I've searched as much as I can. I've seen every aspect of that room that's available to me. And after I've pied that amount, then I'll make my decision to make entry. And once again, when I make entry, I don't want to stay in the fatal funnel. I don't want to move up here and stay like this. This is a bad place to be. I want to move into the room and try to get off to one side or the other. And what I would do is I would make entry very quickly in and get out of the fatal funnel, and then I'd concern myself with pieing out the rest of the room. Searching the rest of the room and making sure it's clear. Alrighty, let's talk about the scenario where you come up to a door. I can now see the hinges. As soon as I see the hinges, it tells me the door is going to open towards me. Remember, if I can't see hinges, that means the door is probably going to open in. If I see hinges, it tells me that the door is probably going to open out. Now, if I was going to approach this scenario, let me show you. First thing I'm going to do is I'll do it with my weapon. Before we do this kind of a thing, we'll always clear a weapon, make sure we've got a safe, empty weapon. We remove the source of ammunition. The magazine comes out of the weapon. Make sure it's pointed in a safe direction. Fingers on the trigger guard. And remove the cartridge from the chamber. These both go in my pocket. Visually inspect the weapon. Make sure there's nothing in it. Magazine well is clear. Work the moving parts a few times. Now I'm confident I have a safe, empty weapon. Okay, my ready position. When I come up here to open the door, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to put the weapon back close to my body. So if I should open the door and there's somebody right there, remember, if my weapon's out here, I'm presenting it to them to grasp, deflect, even attempt to take away. So I'll bring my weapon up here. Now, from this side of the door, I'm going to pull it back to me, and I'm going to have to move out of the way. On the other hand, if I come to this side of the doorway, remember, when I open the door, I'm going to see a lot larger section of the room. In other words, my piece of pie is going to be much wider this way. And you can imagine by opening the door, watch what happens. I open the door, and I don't see very much because the door is blocking my view. It's limiting my view. On the other hand, if I can move to this side of the door, when I open it, as you will see, big piece of the pie for me to look into. I can see from all the way over there, almost to the corner, all the way around, from one position, almost to the middle of the room. Huge piece of pie. Now if I want to increase the search, from here I simply lean my body out and look. Search a little bit farther. Remember, I'm adding to a little bit bigger piece of the pie each time I come around. I'm searching. A little bigger piece of the pie, making sure it's clear. Now, if I want to check that last corner, this last sector fire, because my door movement is limited, I may have to move up closer. I'll probably bring my weapon in closer. And what I'm going to do is do my search from here. Cut the pie, and cut the pie to make sure that room is clear. Remember, the closer I get to this doorway, because there's always a danger of somebody standing here, one of the worst thing you do is provide your threat with a target indicator, and this is one we want you to be aware of. Don't do something like this, where you put the gun in the room and let the muzzle precede you around, or the gun around. They see it coming. They know you're out there. If the person's hiding behind the doorway, they can reach out and deflect the weapon or take it away from you. So don't do this kind of a search. Don't do this thing where you let the muzzle stick out and, man, I just lost my gun. Don't do that. Keep the weapon in close to your body where you have control of it. Remember, if there's a threat around the corner here, I can fire my weapon from here just as easily as I can from right here. So bring it in like so, and do that search, and do that clear, and make sure I'm satisfied there's nobody there. Once you've done it, quickly move into the zone and get out of the fatal funnel. Right or left side of the doorway is your choice. Furniture may dictate it, but once you get in here, now, theoretically, I've cleared a 180-degree fan in this room, and I know what's there or if there's any particular dangers. So whether you're opening a door or pushing the door in, the approach is similar as far as cutting the pie. Don't proceed with your weapon. Let me show you another minor point. Be careful about when you're cutting the pie that if I want to look that direction, don't do this one, where I put my foot out here first. That's a target indicator. Anybody in that room can look down and see my leg and know I'm coming. So yeah, I may have my body protected, but my foot's right there and it's told them, here I come. So keep your feet fairly close together and simply raise up on your weak side toe to let your body lean out and look. Maybe move your foot a couple, 3 inches, lean out and look again. Lean out and look again. Don't do this number, where you put your foot out first and then bring your body out, because you've just given them a target indicator that here I come. So don't use your feet as a target indicator, and don't proceed with your weapon and put it around the corner and look like that. That's another target indicator. Remember, that's one of the things you're going to be watching for when you're looking for the bad guy. Where's his feet? Is his feet sticking out from something? Is his feet protruding from around a corner? And do you see a weapon? And typically people, when they think you're coming, they want to get ready, and they'll do this sort of thing. They'll put the weapon out getting ready for you. That's when you want to be watching for when you're going around corners and searching. Feet, elbows, weapons. Sometimes hat brims. People will be hiding, and they want to look and see if you're there, but if they've got a hat on, guess what? The hat bill will be proceeding beyond the limit of the doorway a long time before my face will. So if you're wearing headgear, remember, your hat can give away exactly where you're coming from. But doorways, once again, if you have a choice, position yourself where you're going to be able to see the biggest piece of the pie initially, and then continue to cut the pie. Lean out and cut the pie. More of the room, and then you may have to move up. More of the room, and now our room's clear.
And always keep the muzzle of the weapon on the threat area.
Yeah.
You know, never lower your weapon, lower your guard.
Exactly. As Bill said, this is a classic mistake people make. They have their weapon down here and they're doing their search like this, looking. Well, the response time, as you can well see, I look, I see a problem, oh, heck, now I've got to respond with reaction and bring the gun up and attempt to fire. Wherever you look, the muzzle looks. We call it the 3-eye principle. Both your eyes are looking, and we're adding a third eye, which is the muzzle of the weapon. So wherever the muzzle is, that's where your eyes are. You always look over the weapon to do your searching and clearing. 3-eye principle, remember. Very important. Don't lower the weapon. Don't take it off the threat area. Make sure wherever your head looks or your eyes look, the muzzle of the weapon's looking as well. Okay, once again, let's show you a reminder. One of the things you want to be careful about proceeding with your weapon. What a lot of people do, and this gets them in trouble, is they want to precede their search to come up to a corner. Remember, corners are danger areas. The closer you get to the corner, the bigger chances are you being compromised. So try not to get here. Try to stay back from it. But let's show you that a real bad scenario. This is where a person is searching a room. They proceed in with their weapon. And the weapon's leading them around as they're looking. And they're doing this number. And they don't know whether there's anybody around the corner. And I just lost my weapon. And guess who's in charge now? Don't put the weapon out where it can be seen or grasped or taken away from you. Keep it in close. And one of the key things that we tell you is stay away from corners. This is a corner, it's a danger area. Why be up here to cut the pie when I can be clear back here? See, if I'm back here cutting the pie and looking around, he's going to have a hard time reaching out and grasping a weapon. Get around there again, Bill, and we'll show you. We'll do it this time. See, from back here, remember, the rule of thumb that we teach in this business in close quarter battle is anytime you're standing at arm's length and you can touch the wall with your pistol, you're too close. That's too close. You want to move it as far back as you can. Remember, the width of hallways can somewhat limit you. But ideally, if you're here, you're too close with your weapon. So what you want to do is bring the weapon. If I have to be this close, then bring the weapon in close to my body. Bring it in here and cut the pie. But let me show you the ideal way. I'll move back. Let me continue to cut the pie here. Move!
Don't shoot me!
Freeze!
Don't shoot me!
move!
Don't shoot me!
Show me
Don't
your
shoot me!
hands!
Don't shoot me! Don't shoot me!
Show me your
Don't
hands!
shoot me! Don't shoot me! Don't shoot me!
Okay.
I need to caution you that you should never point a real gun at anyone. For TV purposes, we depicted the previous scenario. However, beforehand, Ken's gun was made unable to fire. You should never practice this way. Use an inert training device when working with other people. And speaking of practice, the third eye principle looks a lot easier than it really is. Using your unloaded firearm, practice moving around walls and corners with the firearm in the shooting position. You'll find that after a minute or so, it becomes very difficult to maintain this position. And this is where you might start to work on your shooting stance, making sure that it's comfortable and you're able to hold it for realistic times. And in these practice sessions, follow the techniques we've learned so far. Stay out of doorways. Stay back at least 2 feet from walls and corners, and lead with your third eye. Let's move on now with Ken Hackathorn and doorway drills.
All right, we're going to talk about typical interior doors. And remember, in America, we have building codes, and typically most building codes require that interior doors open in. And most of them are designed for right-handers. And this is the classic example. With a door, you don't see the hinges, so you know it's going to open in, and the doorknob's on the right, because most doors are built for right-handed people. The way you approach this particular door, and this typically, since you've got 2 rooms, this is a scenario where you have 2 bedrooms, you know this is probably going to be what we call a corner-fed door. It's not in the middle of the room, it's on the edge, so when I open it, it's actually going to line up with the wall. While I could open it from this side, and I might be forced to, remember, I'm not going to see much of the room because when I open a door like this, there's very little to see because the door's right up against the wall. I'm going to have a wide angle to cut for my pie. My best system for this would be to approach this door from over here. I get myself set up in a secure position, pull my weapon in close to my body, finger in a registered position. Remember, I don't want my finger on the trigger. Only time my finger's on the trigger is when the weapon's on a target or a threat area. So my finger's going to be pressed against the side of the slide of my pistol. Bring it in close, reach out to the knob, open it, move it, and get back from the doorway. Remember, don't stay up here. I'm too close to the corner. Get back. Now I can cover, I've got a lot of target I can pie and check. I can see 2/3 of the room from here. Almost in the corner there. I can pie around, clear around to the point where I can see right along the wall. And one of the problems you have when you push a door open, folks, is what if the subject's hiding behind the door? Now, especially in low light, you may not be able to see between the crack. Nothing says you can't, at this point, take a little peek between the crack of the door and the wall and see if there's anything in there. But if you're not sure, it's dark in the room, one of the key things, remember, particularly the door, if you kick the door open and when you do it, you hear that resounding bang against the wall, you're pretty confident there's nobody hiding behind the door. Another scenario, suppose you kick the door open or push it open and it hits an object and bounces back. And this happens a lot. You open the door forcefully, bounces back, and now it's closed in front of you. You're going to have to reach up again and push the door open. But suppose I want to make sure there's nobody hiding behind this door when I make entry. The system we use when we make entry is called body checking the door. And that simply means that I go in the room, I'm going to take my body and drive it against the door and make sure there's nobody behind it. Let's just say the door is about like this. I'm going to go in quickly. Remember, I'm going to try to stay out of that fatal funnel, but I want to make sure there's nobody behind the door. And as I go in, I simply take my shoulder, drive it against the wall, and then continue in and do my clearing. By doing that, I'm confident there's nobody behind that wall. If there were somebody hiding in this room behind the wall, I can actually drive my shoulder into the wall and pin them against it. As soon as and you'll know it, when you hit the wall, the door, and it stops against a person, it has a very unique feel. You'll know it. And as soon as you hit and you notice somebody there, the first thing you do is quickly out of the room, cover the door. You behind the door! Move out carefully, show me your hands now! And you approach it in that manner. Make their hands come out first, and have them move out in a clear view. People say, well, can I shoot through the door? Ballistically, you can, but you still don't know who's behind the door. You've got to identify who the person is. It could be a member of the family who's scared and hiding behind the door. So you don't want to just blatantly start firing around through the door because you don't know who it is. You want them to identify themselves, and if you don't know who it is, or they want to identify themselves, make sure the first thing that comes out in view is their hands.
One of the master skills that Ken Hackathorn just demonstrated is his control of the situation with verbal commands. Police officers in my hometown spend several hours practicing and learning how to use their voices to control a situation so they don't have to shoot. You should consider practicing these techniques too, especially when house clearing. Remember, the last thing you want to do is to shoot someone. Your first objective is to control the situation to make your home safe, and to do so will require affirmative verbal commands. So practice using a strong voice saying what you might say in a given scenario. Here's Bill Wilson discussing target indicators.
Okay, anytime you go into a house clearing scenario, one of the main things you want to be aware of is target indicators. There are several different target indicators. What we're going to talk about now is visual indicators, such as reflection, shine, shadows, this sort of thing. So what we're going to show you now is the use of reflection and to be aware of the shadows in the room. We're going to have now, we've already cleared this dining room area of the house, and we're going to go in and continue to clear the house and look and see what's in the kitchen area. So I've got this wall here. It's giving me cover and concealment. And I'm going to pie the room, easing around, and I see there's a mirror on the far wall over there. So I know that mirror can be to my advantage and also to my disadvantage. It can be giving me away, but it can also be showing me where the bad guy's at. So as I'm pieing the room, I'm kind of the corner of my eye, I'm watching that mirror. I've still always got the muzzle of my gun basically on, double check I'm clear here, on the threat, around the edge of the wall. The edge of that wall is my threat area. I want to always lead with the muzzle, but out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching that mirror over there, looking for target indicators. Now, the ease around the room real slow, pie in the room, pie in the room, pie in the room. As we're going around, I'm looking at that mirror, and I'm looking for any kind of movement out of the corner of my eye. Okay, I see movement in the mirror. Okay, you in the kitchen, put your hands up. You in the kitchen, put your hands up. Let me see your hands. Ease on out, ease on out, ease on out, on out, on out. Okay. We know he's an unarmed. We know the problem's okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to tell him, come on, come on. Can you come on around? Come on around.
All the way through.
On the way through. Okay.
So now you've used the mirror. What other things are good indicators?
Okay, another good indicator is shadows. Again, we're doing the same thing here. We're easing around the room here. I'm pieing the room. Now, the corner of my eye, not only am I watching that mirror, but I see there's sun shining in the window there. Out of the corner of my eye, I see down in the sunshine on the floor there, I see what appears to be a head and possibly a gun. So I'm watching for movement there. Okay? Definitely appears like that's a problem. So I immediately go for my cover here. You in the window. You in the window. Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Put your gun down. Let me see your hands. Hand open. Now that we've shown you the reflection and the shadow for target indicators, other obvious things to watch for are stuff like a toe sticking around a wall, similar to this. Look for muzzle of a gun sticking around the wall. maybe even a hat brim, as we showed you earlier in the doorway scenarios. You know, it's anything out of the ordinary. And if you're in your own home, you'll probably know if that was your shoe sitting there that your dog happened to drag over there. Even something like a knife blade here. You know, as you're pieing the room, you know everything over here is clear. The edge of that wall is your threat area. So that you want to be always with your peripheral vision watching top to bottom. That's your most obvious place to see a threat and to get a target indicator. As you're pieing the room, looking for anything around the edge of the wall.
What about other objects inside the room? Refrigerators, anything else that would cast a shadow, lights that would be on, anything like that? Are there other things you should be looking for?
Yeah, you can get a shadow effect like that just from a light in the house. It doesn't have to be ambient light from outside a window. There can be chrome like on a refrigerator. You might get a reflection in the chrome in the refrigerator. That will especially show up like movement in the room. So anything like that that can give you a reflection, like even the glass on a picture frame can give you, if not an actual reflection of the threat, it'll show movement in the room, and that's something to watch out for, because movement is another one of our target indicators.
Right. At least you know that there is someone in that room, because at this point you still don't know if there's anybody there.
That's right.
So it could be this room or the next room, but if you see that movement, it gives you a good indication that there's someone inside there, right?
That's right. Something could not be right in there. Okay, another target indicator to be aware of is more of an audio indicator. Stuff like shuffling of your feet, dragging your feet. So anytime you're doing a house clearing, you want to always be sure and lift your feet up, move as silently as possible. Try to make the least amount of noise. And one of the things that's real common, somebody that first starts working on the house clearing techniques, they know that the corner of that wall is the threat area. And they know the farther away they are from the threat, the better their chance of survival. We've taught you that throughout the entire course here. So what they want to do, they want to hug this wall. Hear the noise I'm making? Is my back sliding against the wall? I'm trying to get that maximum distance, but at the same time, I'm giving myself away as a target indicator as I slide along that wall. Especially if you have a magazine carriage or something in the back, they're going to dump across it and make a lot of noise. So it's real important. You want to stay as far away from the threat as you can, but you don't want to drag on that wall. And move your feet as silently as possible as you pie that room. Because you don't want to do this. As far as the bad guy in the other room, you always want to be listening for anything that might give you away. You might hear him trying to tiptoe away, or maybe you're lucky enough, maybe his watch alarm goes off or something like that. Any noise that you hear in that room that's out of the ordinary, it's not your normal ticking of the clock that you always hear or something like that. That can be a target indicator for you. That can be an indicator to you that there is a potential of a threat inside that room.
Okay, let me show you another little trick. If you have to enter a danger area and you're fairly confident that there's somebody in there, you haven't had a chance to check, but you figure there's somebody in there, they're probably going to be waiting to ambush me or waiting to catch me from that corner of the room. They know I've got to make entry through this particular opening. A good trick is use a distractor. And you can use almost anything. If you're in a house, you can pick up a piece of furniture, an ashtray, a lamp, magazines, whatever you might find. And we're talking about, in my case, I'll just take, for example, my car keys. They're handy. I pull them out. I know I've got to enter the room. I want to make sure that when I make that quick entry around the corner, that whoever's in there waiting for me, and who's probably got their weapon pointed at me, at this corner waiting for me, or watching it, I'm going to give them a distraction so that they're not going to be looking right there when I make my move. So I'm going to throw against the wall in the opposite room, or the opposite side of the room. I'm going to throw, I could use my hat, car keys, my wallet, a pocket full of change, anything I can get my hands on. I'm going to throw it very briskly against that wall. And as soon as I throw it against the wall, that'll hopefully attract their attention. And we want something that's going to make a crash and a bang. And at the instant they look, I'm going to make my move around the corner and cover that threat zone. Okay, let's show what we're talking about. I'm going to get ready to make entry. I take my car keys out. Get down, get down! In that instant of distraction, I've got in and covered my zone. Remember, there are no rules or tactics absolutely cast in stone. Everything has to be somewhat flexible. But if you've got to go into a danger area and you feel confident there's probably somebody set up or waiting for you, provide a distraction. Anything you can throw in there to divert their attention for just a second will possibly be an aid for you to get around and get a cover on them, or maybe respond to the threat before they have a chance to harm you. So you constantly got to use your head. Remember, improvising is one of the best systems you can use. When in doubt, providing them with something else to shoot at or focus their attention on than your own body. Every little trick. And there's a little bag of tricks. You want to have a lot of them available to you, so when you reach a problem and you say, man, this one's got me worried, pull one of those little bags of tricks out of your bag, and that's a good one to use. Works very, very well. Okay, and from here, I want to make entry into this problem. I'm going to use something to distract her. In this case, I'll use my hat. It's handy, it's easy. I'm getting ready to make entry. I take the hat. Get down, don't move! Show me your hand slowly. Okay, what we're going to do now is run Bill through a phase play of a clearinghouse scenario. He's basically going to make entry through the primary entry point. In this case, we'll make it the front door, the living room door. He'll clear the living room quarters, and then he'll actually work his way around to clear the kitchen. Any hostile targets he engages, any ones that pose a lethal threat to him, he'll challenge. If they don't comply, he'll exercise utilization of lethal force. What we're going to see is watch his movement, watch the way he utilizes his feet, where his weapon's placed when he breaks the corners, when he clears the particular rooms. Notice his follow-through. As he does, if and when he feels it's necessary to recharge his weapon, he'll do it. Remember, one of the basic rules is anytime your fire load or your capacity drops below 50%, if you have an opportunity, you should recharge your weapon, bring it back up to capacity. So we'll kind of watch his movement, watch the way he manipulates the weapon, watch the way he actually scans and looks using that third eye principle. Both eyes, the muzzle of the weapon. Nice and slow and deliberate. Let's watch how he does it. All right, notice Bill's going to move up to the opposite side of the door from the doorknob. This way, when he opens it, he'll see much more of the room to pie. So his primary sector, he can search. He's cutting the pie around to check the far corner. Now he's searching. Remember, he's searching over the gun, in the room quickly, out of the fatal funnel, and clearing that corner. Now he's going to move on and clear the kitchen. He's got a hostile target. He just...
Put the gun out!
Target quickly neutralized and dropped. He continues his clearing. See how he's cutting his pie from the maximum distance? Three-eye principle. Wherever the eyes look, the gun looks. He's pieing the room a little bit more with each move. Searching a little bit with each move.
Put the gun out! Get down!
Engages the target. Target drops down behind cover. Tactical reload. Bring his pistol back up to full capacity. Done nice and quickly. Now he's got a target that has dropped down behind cover. He's not sure of its status. So he's going to pie around. He's going to use all the distance he can to his advantage. Check to make sure that target has been neutralized and no longer a threat. Once again, watch the position of the pistol. Cutting a little bit more of the pie each time, making sure that that target is no longer a threat. Okay, Bill has just assured himself that the target's down behind the breakfast nook has been neutralized. Now he's going to direct his attention towards the hallway and the rear of the house. Still a very severe danger zone when you reach a hallway with multiple doors and multiple rooms. He's cutting the pie as far as he can one way. Now he's going to have to move around and check the corners the best he can. Notice that he's staying away from the doorway. He's not leading with his muzzle. He's not getting up to the point where he can be compromised by somebody standing right inside the doorway. And as he closes, you will notice he has to bring the weapon in closer to his body to prevent it from being grasped by a threat. Okay, Bill's faced with a real problem here. He's got three doorways, but he's going to take the bathroom first. He doesn't want to leave anything behind him. He's cutting the pie. Tight confines means he's going to move into the bathroom and quickly. Remember, in the bathrooms, always check the shower stall, the bathtub area. If there's a linen closet or anything where somebody could be hiding, you always want to quickly check that before you decide the bathroom's secure. Now he's going to move out, and he's faced with two bedrooms. He's going to take one to his immediate front. Because of the angle, he's going to have to open the door out. Notice he's going to maximize distance. He gets back into the bathroom door. So he's got more distance from the threat, and now he's going to cut his pie. Checking this bedroom very carefully, using maximum distance. watching for any threats that might be in the
Get away
room.
from her! Get away from her! Get away from her!
Target holding a hostage was engaged and dropped immediately. He follows through with the target to the floor to make sure it's neutralized. Now he continues to cut the pie. Once the pie is cut, he moves in quickly. Room secure, but he has one closet, a little linen closet he must search. Maximizes the distance back quickly. Checks the corner, back, checks up and down, because closets often have upper shelves. He's going to check the upper shelves, make sure there's nobody hiding in there. Once he's satisfied the closet's clear, then he will close the door, direct his attention now, moving back out towards the next bedroom. This bedroom has a typical American door that opens in and is set up for a right-hander. Again, he's going to try to open from the opposite side, which allows him to see more of the room. Target's engaged, drops to the floor. He follow-throughs on the target. Still maintains his distance and continues to cut his pie. Tactical reload before he makes entry, brings his pistol back up to capacity. Now he's confident that he's ready to start his continuing clearing drill. Remember, once again, before he makes entry, he's going to move in sharply, clearing it, getting out of the fatal funnel. One more closet to deal with, another closet problem. Quickly maximizes distance, searches the closet up and down. Satisfies the closet is clear. He can now close the door, move out, and continue a search. Okay, let's look at a situation where you might have an adversary hiding behind a door. So when you open the door of the room, instead of it flying back and hitting the wall and bouncing off the wall, what really happens is there's a person standing behind it. You open the door and it hits the person, and you sense that something's not right. There may be somebody waiting behind this door to get me. The system we teach is when you're ready to make entry, we call it body checking. He'll actually take his body, slam it against the door, and try to drive it against the wall. If it doesn't go, and you, believe me, the sensation if there's a person behind it, you'll know, you'll feel it. Suddenly you know there's a threat. What you want to do is quickly get away from the threat, jump back, cover the door, and verbally challenge the person behind the door to come out. Keeping in mind, it may be a family member or somebody who's been scared and afraid and did the natural thing, which is run and hide behind a door. So you want to determine who it is. This shows you the body check technique for checking a door. Body checking the door.
Get behind the door! Show me your hands! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
Here we go with what we call a body check to the door. In case somebody's behind the door, we open the door of the room. When we move in, we hit it with our body, feel the resistance.
Behind the door! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
And he challenges the person behind the door to come out and identify themselves, always showing their hands first. Let's talk briefly about the difference between concealment and cover. And a lot of people tend to confuse them. Remember, concealment is a means of hiding yourself or reducing yourself from being in view. Cover, by definition, is a means by which we stop or deflect bullets. Typical interior walls, and let's look at the scenario here, we'll have Bill come out from concealment. Remember, he's exposing a minimum amount of his body and addressing the threat area. Once he's out and in a position where we can see him, he's going to be ready to engage a target. Let's see it cut the pie and come out a bit, Bill. Okay, but remember, interior walls, typical American interior walls, while they provide concealment, they do not provide cover. The bullets could go right through and strike him. But keep in mind, most people out of habit tend to want to shoot at an available target. Even though he's partially protected behind this, most people, under stress, are going to shoot at what they see the target, the amount of them exposed. But understand, if the bullet goes through here, it's going to go right through and strike him and be just as lethal as if it went right past here. As a matter of fact, we've got a little demonstration using typical sheetrock interior wall boards, including a reinforcing stud. We're going to shoot them with different caliber weapons to show you just exactly what a typical interior wall will do as far as stopping or deflecting bullets. I think you'll find the results quite interesting. Alrighty, what we're going to look at now, folks, and we discussed about the difference between cover and concealment. Remember, once again, cover is defined as a means of stopping bullets or deflecting bullets so that they can't pose a injury or a lethal threat to you. Concealment, on the other hand, simply means some way you hiding or obscuring yourself from being seen by an adversary. We've got here is a mock-up of what would be typically in most interior walls in most American homes. We've got a classic sheetrock normally spaced approximately about this width apart, maybe slightly more. There could be possibility of insulation, but typically interior walls don't have much or any at all. Also with your normal studs that you would have separating the sheetrock and the wall. If you happen to be lucky enough to have the bullet and be hiding directly behind the stud, it might add an additional level of protection, but as you're going to find out, not a whole lot. We're going to first demonstrate different calibers, firing them through just the 2 layers of sheetrock, and we've got a silhouette target behind it, just as if we've got a target or an adversary would be behind the wall. And we'll shoot first the test rounds through just the sheetrock, and then we'll follow up with a shot through the studs. Remember, even if the bullets don't make it all the way through, or if they do a marginal impact on the back sheetrock, you're going to have enough splatter or spalling effect that don't be surprised to see a lot of debris being blown through or impacting the wall. Even if the round possibly misses you, you may have secondary missiles coming through that if you're not wearing eye protection, for example, and you have to be looking in that direction, you can very well take debris in the eyes that could affect your ability to shoot and return fire. So we're going to take a quick look at this. We're going to have Bill Wilson shoot the various calibers. We'll describe what caliber it is. He'll shoot around just through the plain sheetrock separators, and then he'll shoot one through the stud. We'll see what effects it has on the target when we're done. So let's take a look at this and see what each caliber does at typically about a 5-meter distance, which would be normal for most indoor encounters. Okay, we'll start with a .22 caliber handgun. In this case, it's a Smith & Wesson Combat Masterpiece. We're shooting standard .22 long rifle ammunition. And now through the stud. Okay, next caliber we're going to try, we'll try a revolver, and with a typical .38 special, and this is the Smith & Wesson L-frame 686 with conventional .38 special service ammunition, lead round nose service ammunition. The next weapon we're going to go to is 9mm. In this case, it's a Beretta M92. The ammunition will be conventional 9mm ball ammo.
Yeah, now I've got 9mm hollow point.
Okay, we'll try 9mm hollow points, the same drill. And finally, we'll use .45 automatic, 1911 pistol. We're going to try both a 200 grain semi-wad cutter, and we'll also try conventional 230 grain hardball. First the wad cutter. Now the ball. Okay, what we'll do now is move up and take a look at the target behind and see what kind of effect we have. If you move around and look at the sheetrock, the layers, the exit positions, you can see probably the only cartridge that failed to penetrate the stud was the .22 long rifle. Through the sheetrock, the .22 long rifle projectile penetrated with ease and struck the target. The .22 long rifle pistol cartridge was stopped with a 2x4 stud. But all the rest of the calibers, the .38s, the 9mm, and the .45s, even going through the 2x4 studs.
And we can see there is a lot of spalling back there, as well as the deflection of the bullets, it looks like, too.
Exactly. Some deflection. Particularly, you're going to see the bullets that went through the stud were deflected. The ones that went through the sheetrock went pretty much straight through. The ones that went through the studs were often deflected at a slight angle. But nonetheless, they would still cause serious injury and very likely fatal wounds if they struck you in a vital area.
That's another good reason to stay away from your cover when you're the one that's using the cover, because if you were, say, 10 feet back on the other side of the room using this for cover as you're pieing the room, maybe if the threat shot at you, maybe their bullet would be deflected by a stud and actually miss you, where if you're crowding the wall, it would obviously go right on through and you'd be injured.
Exactly. But once again, when you're working indoors, the implication that somehow that your handgun is going to be non-effective if you have to shoot through walls is misleading. And remember, one of the things, the points we make about being a good shot, and one of the imperative things about being a good shot, is the #1 bullet stop that you're going to have working for you is your target, the human torso. If you fire shots that miss your adversary and impact on interior walls, if you have other family members in other rooms or nearby, you could pose a lethal threat to them simply because your rounds, even though you're hitting the wall, and your mind may be, it's okay. This demonstration, I hope, shows you that if you miss your target and inadvertently fire rounds through the walls, they still pose a tremendous threat to people on the other side.
You guys think most people are going to be surprised about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most people don't think about it.
Well, most people who are into guns and have done this. People like us know that that's probably going to be okay. I mean, we realize that our bullets are going to go through and there's not much of a stop. A lot of people who've never contemplated, like Bill said, they've got a gun in their home, they think, well, the wall is going to be a protection. They're in for a big surprise.
Yeah, the 2x4 especially.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are, even with just the 38 Special, this is not one of those hot self-defense loads.
Well, I think in terms of how many people we know that go out to our ranges and shoot rifles at our steel targets, and they think that somehow because it's steel, the bullet won't go through it. And they walk down and look at our nice steel targets with bullet holes drilled through them, and they, well, I didn't think it would go through. Well, velocity in a rifle will drill right through most steel unless it's armor plate. And same thing, a lot of people think that somehow a handgun bullet simply is not going to make it through a wall. Typically, one of the things we try to teach people is that if they have a concrete block wall to their disposal, that's one of the best forms of cover they can have. We ask people if they're going to do a lot of dry firing or practice in their home, and in their basement or some part of the structure they have a concrete block wall. That's the surface we want you to dry fire on, because we minimize the danger of bullets penetrating. We've got a typical concrete block here. What we're going to do is back off about 7 meters, and we're going to shoot the block with both 9mm ball and .45 ball just to confirm what kind of cover the concrete block provides for us. Keep in mind that we're not going to shoot it through the solid part here, through the web. We know that's pretty structurally sound. We're going to shoot through the hollow core area right here, the non-supported area. We'll shoot, like I say, once again with a 9mm ball round and also with a .45 ball round, just for your own interest to see what effect it has. We may actually follow up with a second shot in each area just to see if the first round will cause enough structural damage that the follow-up round will go through. Let's take a look at it and see if, in fact, this does constitute cover as we have been led to believe.
Okay, first I'm going to shoot the top half of the block with 9mm ball. Let's go up and see what kind of damage we had. Looks like for a 9mm ball, the center block made a pretty good cover for us.
So it got through the first piece, punched through, but it probably, the first time you shot it didn't make a hole, right?
No, the first time just cratered it. The follow-up shot is the one that punched on through, but it was stopped by the back core. So it took 2 shots to get through 1 layer with 9mm.
So if he were to go ahead and start hammering the thing, he could probably cut it down.
Yeah, probably punching through the same hole, he could eventually cut through the back, probably another 2 or 3 shots.
Okay, now we'll try it with a .45 ball.
Of course, what you see is the first round cratered it, the second round of .45 punched through, and actually when it struck the back, it actually fractured the block. But anybody hiding on the other side of this wall would have been relatively secure, because neither rounds fired 2 shots on the exact same point of aim, managed to get through and strike the target behind it. So unlike the normal indoor walls, sheetrock walls, which in reality are just concealment, concrete blocks, in fact, provide very good cover. All right, what we're going to do here is we're going to go through a little exercise that I often use in a training program. I call this the corner drill, and the reason for it is when we have discussions, and occasionally we'll hear discussions, well, should I engage multiple targets with one shot per target, or should I use a double tap or a two-shot drill per target? Of course, the answer depends a lot upon the circumstances. One of the most important ones, of course, is the issue of what we call time and distance. If your targets are real close, it may dictate, for example, a double tap drill. If your targets are at a great distance from you, let's say 10, 15 yards, you may want to be more deliberate in firing single shots well placed. But what I've found over the years is the decision of whether you shoot single shots or double shots is more relative to the skill level of the shooter than it is to whether it's valid or not. And with that, and as we'll run through the exercise, what I'll show you is that a neophyte or a new shooter will be relatively slow shooting singles or doubles. The time tends to be pretty much the same. Talented or skilled shooters tend to be very fast with either technique. And what we're going to do is, just to make the point, I'll explain the scenario, and I'm going to run Bill through it first, and we'll see what the difference is between his time fired engaging targets with multiple targets with single hits, and we'll do it again shooting multiple targets with double taps. And the corner drill scenario is very simple. The shooter will start here, centered on a range facing the target straight away in front of him, that being what we'll call our most immediate threat. Very typical to our worst case scenario, shall we say our worst nightmare, is to be walking out to your parking area, to your parking garage, to your car. A guy steps out in front of you and says, "Give me your money," or poses a threat to you. At the same time, you happen to notice off to each flank two bad guys, his backup men, step out. So you're not only facing one threat, you're actually facing three bad guys. This is the world's worst case scenario, so to speak. You got your weapon on. Now, we could all put on our coats or our vest and shoot this from concealment, but the bottom line is what I'm going to show you here is about the speed of difference between singles and doubles. So adding the draw to it is a minor consequence for this particular demonstration. What I'm going to ask is Bill to step up here. And the only thing I'm going to specify in this exercise is he must engage this target first. The other two targets he can engage in any order. I'll use my timer, and on the beep he will react, draw, shoot that target with one shot, and each of the other two targets with one shot each. And then we're going to record his time that it takes him to do that.
This is from the draw.
From the draw. So, once again, close target's his most immediate threat. He will deal with it first, and then he'll respond by engaging the other two outboard targets any order, one shot each, Bill. Is the shooter ready?
Ken, have step back, Ken, so I can see the target. Okay, good.
Stand by. All right. Folks, you'll notice that the time for Bill to fire 3 shots is 2.42 seconds. 2.42. Under 2.5 seconds. Okay, Bill, you need another mag? You can do double taps this time. You want to do a tactical mag change. All right. Same response. He's going to deal with the first target, and the center target, immediate threat, and then each of the flankers, any order. He will double tap them this time. Same thing, except a double tap. 2 shots on each target. Is the shooter ready? Stand by. All right. Good, good. All right, the difference in the time. This time he did 2 shots in each in 3.07 seconds. What we're talking about, in a half a second more in time, he fired 3 more rounds. Now, consider that firing 1 shot, if they're well placed, or chances are it's going to be a good round, particularly from a 45. In this case, he's fired 2 shots to the upper torso. The odds of incapacitation are far greater with 2 rounds than 1, and the time it took him to fire the additional 3 shots was approximately a half a second. That's not bad. Now what we're going to do is we're going to paste these targets up and reset the scenario, and I'll have Bill run me, and we'll compare my times for the single shot and the double shot. Okay, once again, I'm going to duplicate the drill that Bill just did. My first response will be, as his was, the immediate threat being the first one, centered up on me. I'll respond at each of the flanker targets, and I'll do it with 1 shot per target. Ready?
Get ready. Stand by.
Times 268.
Okay, this time we'll do the same drill, double tapping each target. Ready.
Okay. Stand by.
Time is 296.
Okay, the point being, again, the difference it takes most people between firing one shot at each target and firing two, particularly if they're accomplished. And we'll let Lenny try it here and see what his time frame difference is. My point is, and we'll talk about after Lenny's done it, is I find most people's likelihood of incapacitating a hostile target is probably going to be better with 2 hits to the chest than just 1. Shooters ready. Stand by. 1 shot per target. Time is 2.61. Okay, reload if necessary. We'll now try the double taps. Time of 3:09. All right, 3:09. From a 261 to 3:09. Most people, the time it takes to fire 3 extra shots really shakes out to being a half a second for 3 more rounds.
So the point is that it's probably
Wiser wise to fire the extra shots.
And your chances of, if you do have a miss on the first shot,
you pick up the second one.
See, I've seen a lot of people, their second shot is actually sometimes more accurate than first. I don't know which one I missed over here, if it was my first or second. You guys, did you see it?
Suppose you pulled out the first shot, fired the one, and it was the miss.
Right.
And so my theory is, if you want to shoot singles, fine. I'm not so sure that there's a lot of validity in saying that while you're shooting 1 shot, you're better off to go on and on and on, instead of the comments I hear from a lot of people, you come out, while I'm shooting a double tap, the second or third guy may have time to shoot me. If you really equate it out,
right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real valid issue.
Depends on how many guys there are, too.
How many guys there are.
Yeah.
And we get back to time and distance. And we get another thing we need to discuss. The way people are incapacitated is during the result of 2 factors. One is physiological. That means I shoot projectiles. Remember, handgun velocity bullets produce penetrating wounds. All I do is poke holes in people. Now, if physiologically, what's going to happen is the bullet penetrates the body cavity, it's going to create a wound channel. And the reason we use for things like hollow point bullets is to make a lot wider wound channel and more laceration. So what physiologically happens is the bullet goes through the body cavity, it cuts or perforates veins and arteries, causes a loss of blood pressure. Now the drawback to this scenario is, and what we don't tell you, is even though that target may have a lethal, non-survivable hit, there may be enough oxygen in the bloodstream to the brain for that person to be active and functional for 5 to 15 seconds. So even though you may have delivered 2 very accurate, totally lethal, non-survivable wounds, that person, if they are armed, can certainly, anybody with moderate skill can pull a weapon out and empty it in 5 seconds, let alone 15. So there's no guarantee physiologically that you're going to take them down. The only guaranteed physiological shots are if the bullets strike the medulla of the brain or the spinal column. Those will cause instantaneous shutoffs. The problem is when you're shooting at this angle, it's very hard to get handgun velocity bullets to go through and hit the spine, unless it's luck. Saying bullets going into the frontal cavity of the head are often deflected. Now you may get them into the brain box, but the good news is most people shot in the head, as long as it penetrates the skull, react very quickly and very violently. They usually are not in your sight picture much longer. But body cavity hits physiologically may not produce instantaneous drops on behalf of your adversaries. Remember, your bad guys may have not read combat handguns and don't know they're supposed to fall down.
Right.
Now, the other thing we have is we call psychological stops. It's possible, and we see it all the time, people get struck in the elbow with a .25 automatic and go down like they were hit with a sledgehammer. That's psychological.
Is that a pain-induced thing, or the fact that I've been shot?
Psychological. The gun goes off. I've been shot. They felt something.
Right.
So we see psychological and physiological. Quite often, psychological stops are more effective than physiological. We see people who are shot go down, give up, and recover their wounds and actually come out of it none for the worse. So you have to understand both factors come into play.
So you're saying from this distance, even though I may get a center hit shot, I could still come on top of you. So maybe it's better to shoot 2 rounds because you may get a chance to give him that mortally wounding or incapacitating shot.
Think in terms that if we're talking about the physiological, remember we always train for the worst case scenario. And if the worst case scenario is that the reason you're going to be incapacitated is a loss of blood pressure.
Right.
If imagine that you're your heart and your veins and arteries are a hydraulic system. If I go in there and punch one hole in the hose, it's going to leak out.
Right.
If I punch two holes, it's going to leak out that much faster.
Right.
Hence, one of the things we teach is, I teach you engage a hostile threat with a minimum of 2 shots. You shoot more.
Right.
If you can, all the better.
Right.
What typically people do in gunfights, boom, 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 boom. They shoot until they get down. They shoot until the threat stops. The more holes you have in them, the quicker the loss of blood pressure, the more quickly they're going to be incapacitated physiologically.
Right. Because anything really can happen, but chances are if the guy just has one hole that goes straight through, straight in, straight out, he's not going to fall over and die.
Unless psychologically,
Right.
he said, oh, I'm shot, and I give up.
And if he does die, it may take him a minute or two,
Exactly.
depending
Exactly.
upon the nature of the wound.
And those of us that study this sort of thing know of every day we hear of instances and cases where somebody has received extremely serious gunshot wounds and completed an incredible task. Run away from a police officer, outrun him. Climb, crawl, physically fight. You know, under the stress and the adrenaline and the fear induced in committing a crime, remember one of the things that happen as a result of that adrenaline flow is you're not likely to feel much in the way of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So to think it's a pain impulse, or people say to me, well, how about a bullet hitting somebody? One of the classic ones we hear now, and if you follow the shooting journals, they talk about shooting people in the pelvic girdle,
Right.
breaking them down or knocking them down. Well, remember, let's go back to Newton's third law of motion. If I can fire a projectile from a handgun that will knock you down, it's going to knock me down.
It's got to be a pretty big projectile.
Yeah, the bullet doesn't have the capability to physically hit you in the pelvic bone and knock you over.
It doesn't have the mass to be able to drive you down.
Exactly.
If it broke your bone, possibly you could fall.
Yeah, I was involved in an investigation of a shooting here a few years ago in which a perpetrator was shot in the pelvic bone with a 9mm ball round. It actually entered, punched through his pelvic bone, and exited the cheek of his
Straight hole.
Straight hole through him. He hadn't read combat handguns, so he didn't know to fall down. He continued to shoot. Now, he later took a hit in another place. It was a non-survival wound. But the bottom line is to say that shooting somebody in the pelvic bone is going to produce a knockdown is a little bit of a misnomer. It may, but also shooting somebody in the elbow may produce a knockdown.
Bill Wilson, Ken Hackathorn, and Lenny McGill Productions have teamed together to produce the most informative, technically correct approach to modern defensive pistol tactics and shooting techniques ever released on videotape. 12 titles in all, packed with the latest on skills, drills, equipment, mindset, tactics, and shooting techniques, plus a whole lot more. Wilson and Hackathorn are both experts in their fields, and Lenny McGill Productions is known worldwide for its high-quality firearms-related video productions. Together, they have created a series of programs that will entertain, amaze, inform, and make you aware of the tactics you need to survive a real gunfight. Basic Self-Defense Handgun Use and Safety is a 2-part set covering the basic fundamentals of shooting: grip, stance, sight picture, sight alignment, and trigger pull. Plus, informative segments on self-defense pistols and ammunition. What happens in a real gunfight? What gun is best for you? 9mm versus 45, and lots more.
Start to think about how can I practice and train that's going to increase my chance of survival.
Advanced Self-Defense Shooting Tactics and Techniques is a 5-part series that takes the viewer to a new level in both shooting skills and tactical knowledge. Extensive discussions and demonstrations on the use of cover, shooting while moving, both towards and away from your target. You'll learn the advantages of a speed reload versus a tactical reload, aimed fire versus flash sight picture versus point shooting, using your vehicle for cover, shooting from a vehicle, 2 shots versus 1 shot, Over 5 hours in all of the finest pistol instruction techniques in the world.
One of the best lines I've heard, and it's a great one, is people saying, what's the best weapon you can have? It's your mind.
Combat Ready Self-Defense Shooting Practice Drills is the first program ever that takes you into the practice routines of two of the finest pistol shooters in the world. Bill Wilson and Ken Hackathorn share 20 years of experience as they show you how to practice like a pro and increase your skill level faster and easier.
You seen both the front post?
Oh yeah, on that kind of a shot, I'm getting a true sight picture.
And have you seen the both front and rear sight?
Oh yeah, front and rear sight, good alignment, you know, really paying attention to the front sight. Actually, just like I would be taking a 25-yard precision shot.
Nightmaster, low-light shooting and flashlight techniques, is an up-to-date look at the equipment and tactics needed to successfully utilize a handheld light source in an armed encounter. Wilson and Hackathorn demonstrate the latest flashlights, their advantages and disadvantages, and how to use them for your tactical advantage.
Indoors, sometimes you can't move a big distance, but if you're here and you're illuminated and all of a sudden you see a threat, one step to the right, one step to the left, either way, to get out of that zone where the incoming fire may be returned to.
House Clearing and Cornering Tactics and Techniques is a 75-minute program that shows you how to enter a house or room and increase your chance for survival. Plus, you'll learn how to maintain cover, why to stay out of the fatal funnel, how to look for and avoid telegraphing target indicators, and the importance of maintaining distance from walls and cover. Plus, a very graphic demonstration of cover versus concealment as Wilson and Hackathorn shoot through ordinary walls and cinder blocks.
So unlike the normal indoor walls, sheetrock walls, which in reality are just concealment, concrete blocks, in fact, provide very good cover.
Practical Concealed Carry is a 90-minute program that shows the basics of concealed carry, how to fit a holster to your body, over 6 different methods of carry, live fire drills, pocket holsters, safety, and lots more.
The virtue of the fanny pack is that if you're in that proverbial summer evening going out for dinner and you're just wearing a pair of shorts and a polo short or a t-shirt, the fanny pack gives you a means of carrying a little bit more substantial firearm and having it readily available.
Building the ultimate 1911 self-defense handgun is designed to save you time and money. The master gunsmiths of Wilson's Combat demonstrate advanced gunsmithing techniques as Bill Wilson and Ken Hackathorn discuss one of the most practical and necessary custom procedures for your 1911 handgun. Overall, this new series of 12 professionally produced videos is one of the finest resources of self-defense handgun shooting tactics and techniques in the world. Brought to you by Wilson Combat.